270 Winchester.
25-06 Remington.
Two flat shooting hunting standards. But which one's the best?
Or which one's best for you?
After last week's gunfight between the Ruger No1 and the Thompson Center Encore Pro Hunter, we thought it'd be fitting to do a discussion on the cartridges they were chambered for. 270 Winchester.
25-06 Remington.
And based on those comments, the Ruger No1 overwhelmingly won the gunfight, based on your comments.
That's right.
But I saw a lot of you commenting on how much you absolutely loved your Thompson Center Encores. I never read a negative comment about either rifle.
Me either.
And as far as we're concerned, yeah, the Ruger No1 won based on comments, but there was no loser in that gunfight. Two great rifles. And I think that's what we're going to have here today. We've got two great cartridges. There's not going to be a loser in this one. And just like last time, we're going to let y'all comment and decide which one wins, but there won't be a loser. Right, so I've talked about 270 before at length. So Joey, why don't you tell us about the 25-06?
All of you know what this is, but few of you have one. It's just a 30-06 neck down to 25 caliber. It's an interesting cartridge though. Let's get into a little bit of the history of it.
The 25-06 is actually older than the 270 Winchester.
Yeah, it actually started being wildcatting cartridge around 1912. And Charles Newton was actually the first person to start wildcatting the cartridge. Which, he also went into the 250-3000, which turned out to be a really popular cartridge back then.
It was wildly popular. It was,
yeah, first cartridge to ever hit 3,000 feet a second back then, which was a big deal.
That's huge. It's, this wasn't long after the introduction of smokeless powder.
That's right.
So, yeah, that was a big deal, 3,000 feet a second.
Then you had other people experimenting with it, like Colonel Townsend Whalen and Adolf Niedner.
And my understanding, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding all of this, you had Colonel Townsend Whalen, and just, he was a rifleman. He knew his stuff. And then Adolf Niedner
was an arms company.
And gunsmith. Well, that was his gunsmith that turned Colonel Whelan's ideas into actual firearms.
Basically, it was a big group of friends or acquaintances that got together.
Yeah, just a bunch of enthusiasts.
Working on all kind of wildcat cartridges.
They were experimenting. And Townsend Whelan and Adolf Niedner, they were both helping out Ned Roberts develop his 257 Roberts. Now, Ned Roberts didn't know that they were working on 25-06, but it was just a big group of friends there.
And they're all trying to invent something new.
Yeah, and it made sense. They were all in the same general area of New England. That's where all of your major arms manufacturers were. Springfield Armory, Springfield, Massachusetts, I'm assuming. So yeah, it's just Winchester was in New Haven, Connecticut. Colt was in the area.
There's tons of gun manufacturers back then around that general area.
Yeah, that was the industrial base of the U.S. pretty much. So yeah, it made sense. A bunch of friends just seeing what they could create. And at the same time, or almost the same time, about
the same time,
1920s, you had Winchester coming out with the 270 Winchester in 1925 for the Model 54 bolt action. So I guess with all the history there on the 25-06 and 270 for that matter, why did the 270 become so popular? But it took the 25-06 for absolutely ever to catch on.
I don't really think it ever caught on.
That's a good point.
To this day, I still think it's a cartridge that hasn't really caught on a whole lot. I mean, there's a few people that get it to experiment, and there's a few people that get it that really love it. But as popular as the 270 is, the 25-06 is not.
And that's, for me, that's almost fascinating because they're ballistically almost identical.
They are.
That's the 115 grain .25-06, according to Nosler's load data, is traveling approximately 3,100 feet a second. 270 Winchester, 130 grain bullets, traveling approximately 3,100
feet a second.
At 400 yards, they both have about a 23-inch drop with 100 yard zero. They're almost ballistically identical, yet, as you pointed out, that still hadn't really caught on.
It still hasn't. I think it's a viable cartridge, you know, for certain type of hunting. I think it's a viable cartridge for, you know, mule deer, whitetail.
I think we're hitting on several things. Okay, and back to them being so similar. Both of them benefited greatly from the slower powders.
They did.
The 25-06 was overbore, but so was the 270. Just not as bad early on.
Had a bigger bore diameter.
A bigger bore diameter helped it out. But the 270 sat on the shelves for a long time also.
It did.
It didn't catch on immediately, so...
I think both of them benefited greatly once the slower burning powders came on the market, you know, from the war, you know, come back and you got 4350, 4831, you know, all that helped both of these cartridges tremendously.
Yeah, definitely, and what you said about the market, just the fact that this was Winchester, that helped out a lot because you had somebody making ammunition for it with a rifle chambered in it.
You did. And there was a few rifles chambered in this later on in the early 60s. You know, Remington didn't commercialize a cartridge till 69. But there were a few rifles like Ruger had a M77 chambered in a 25-06 before Remington commercialized a cartridge. But it took those slower burning powders for people to actually see the performance of this cartridge. And it not burning up barrels as often and getting the velocities from the slower burning powders.
Which says a lot about the 25-06, that it managed to hang on, still in production, still going, people still using it. But it managed to hang on without nobody even making ammunition for it. You had to reload to have a 25-06 cartridge.
Yeah, basically before 69, I mean, you had to be somebody that pretty much hand loaded. I mean, you had to be able to neck down cases. You had to be able to
That's the only option.
Yeah, you turn other cartridges and, I mean, cases into a viable cartridge to put into a rifle.
And that says a lot about it too. This, just the fact that Ruger chambered a production rifle for a cartridge that you couldn't even buy ammunition for. All right, so it had a hardcore following out there for them to even do that.
I think it had a group of people that saw a need for it, but it wasn't the masses, and it didn't get the publicity that I think the 270 got.
But and Jack O'Connor writing about 270.
Absolutely. You know,
we're also getting into, I think there's a big dividing line between the 270 and the 25-06. The 270, you can go up in bullet weight from that 130 grain. 130 grain was the original loading, and
it was
pretty much standard steel. But you can go up to 160 grain partition, and you got an elk rifle.
Whereas in a 25-06, 120 is about the highest you can go.
That's about it.
There's some companies out there making some longer BC bullets now, but I would say you'd find a rifle hard pressed that would shoot those accurately because of the twist rate.
And the 120s are probably going to be around those.
Yeah.
They'll gain that twist rate.
And so, you know, you can't, it's not a cartridge you can, we've talked about this in the past, not a cartridge, you can't download this.
Or it's very tough to.
Yeah, if you try to download this, I think you're going to run into some issues, I think, or some headaches. We won't say issues. I mean, I think anybody can do anything that they set their mind to.
You could find a powder for it, but that would take up a lot of the case capacity and be slower, but
it would be tougher than the 270.
And tougher than 30-06.
That's right.
Which, okay, the 270 is a medium 2 big game cartridge. The 25-06 is a medium to small game.
That's that's what I would classify it as.
Well, it was, and I know a lot of people are successfully using the 25-06 on elk.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
They're using 257 Roberts on elk. But I think for most people, 270 is about the lowest they want to go.
Yeah, for me, if I was gonna have these two rifles, I would choose that if I was going elk hunting over this. Not because one's any worse off than the other one. I just think that's a better choice to take the game, in my opinion.
And then at the same time, the 25-06 was intended to be a dual-purpose cartridge for medium game and varmint, similar to the 243, just like 257 Roberts. But the thing is it really isn't that good of a varmint cartridge either.
Yeah, the thing about it is, if you get in this for a varmint cartridge, you can put an 87 grain projectile in here, and that's a decent varmint load.
You're screaming on velocity then. You're what, 3,400 feet per second territory?
But there's so many other cartridges that you could take for varmint hunting and not use nowhere near the amount of powder you got to put into this cartridge to make it, and the recoil.
And
I mean,
not be as overbore.
And there's no need in taking that felt recoil if you don't have to. I mean, if you can get the same, Yeah,
if you can go shoot them with the 22-250.
Why would you choose this?
Or for that matter, the ones we just named, 257 Roberts, 243.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that kind of explains why this was so wildly popular.
And why this wasn't.
But it's still a great cartridge.
It is. I find it extremely accurate.
Nice, pleasant to shoot.
Yeah, low recoil, and I'm all about that. The older I get, especially.
I understand that.
But not that I haven't shot higher recoiling cartridges, but
it's nice when you don't have to.
It's absolutely nice when you don't have to.
And I guess one thing I've come to really respect about the 25-06, it is a pure deer cartridge. And like I was saying, it just doesn't seem to be that great for varmint. I personally wouldn't want to use it on elk.
Me either.
But coyotes, now that that's become popular, great choice for predator hunting. And antelope and deer. Yeah,
antelope and deer. I guess if I was going on antelope hunt and I was going to my gun safe, this probably would be my first choice.
And
come to think of it.
And if you needed a flat shooting, reach out there and touch some cartridge deer hunting, you can reach out there with it. Just, again, almost identical to the 270 ballistically. So I've come to respect things that aren't as versatile as I get older, that are specialized. And I think that's what that is. That's a specialized antelope and deer cartridge at the end of the day.
I would say you're correct.
Whereas this is a big game, more versatile than the 270.
Absolutely.
But I've really come to respect the specialized cartridges, just like our single shot rifles.
I mean, we got two great cartridges here no matter what.
Yeah, bottom line. And I guess as far as which one would be the best for you, what are you hunting? Let's start there. All right, if you want something for deer and elk, probably 270.
And it also goes back to where you're hunting. What are your distances? What are your further shots? You know, if you're hunting 50 yards and in,
you don't need these.
These are probably not the cartridge you want to choose. Probably a 308.
And we got these specifically for power lines, clear cuts, places we're reaching out there and expecting 300-yard shots.
We used to have a rifle maker here in South Carolina. He used to make beanfield rifles.
Kenny Jarrett.
That's right. And one of his beanfield rifles was chambered in a 25-06 just because of the velocity, and they were shooting long distances across bean fields. And a bean field's just a big open field with beans in it.
And
hunt
agriculture
'em.
wide open, and you can reach out there and touch something. So their general purpose is the same, except for you have more options on game with this one. That the 25-06 is more specialized. But again, I've come to really respect that single purpose cartridge, because what it does well. I think that's why it stuck around all these years to people that needed that flat shooting, low recoil, highly accurate cartridge for those certain hunting situations where you're reaching out there and touching something. So that's our take on the 270 or the 25-06. And I don't think I ever mentioned this before, but when I bought my Ruger No1 in 270, I wanted a long range flat shooting cartridge. And I had a hard time deciding between the 270 and the 25-06 because they're so close ballistically. Either one would have served my purpose as well. It's just I happened to find that rifle chamber at 270, so I ended up with 270.
That's right.
And I think Joey just wanted to experiment.
Yeah, I just wanted to experiment with the cartridge.
I think that's where we're both at now. We've gotten to the point now that we've taken enough game that we just enjoy experimenting and trying different cartridges and appreciating each cartridge for what it is.
And you never know when it may help somebody else out in the future. You know,
sharing some information.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to bring Joey back on here. I know a lot of you missed him after that 243 video. So he came out of retirement and to join us on some videos. Besides, I get tired of hearing myself talk sometimes. It's nice to have somebody else here.
Well, I greatly enjoy it. Anytime I can sit with friends, talk about guns and cartridges, hey, that's a great thing.
It's a good time.
It is.
And what a lot of you don't know is I talk about all this with him anyway, even when he isn't in the videos. Him and a really good friend of the channel, Lee. All of this I talk about with both of them. So, yeah, he's already had more input than you realize. Okay, next week, I have no idea what we're going to get into on the channel, but I am about ready to start the checkering on the 1903 A3 stock here. We're pretty much there on the boiled linseed oil coating, and I think it's looking pretty good.
It is.
I think it's going to be really nice when we get done. So, yeah, I have no idea what we'll do next week, but make sure you've hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you want to find out. And make sure you comment below. 25-06 or 270. Which one's right for you?
We'd love to hear it.
And then we'll announce the results the next chance we get. God bless, and y'all have a wonderful day.